Sega.
Okay, so Sonic Unleashed ended up receiving mixed reviews, but it did do financially well with it selling over 2 million copies. While the HD version didn't catch everyone's attention, for whatever reason the Wii version got decent scores and actually sold more copies. A sequel to Sonic Unleashed was pretty inevitable, but a certain first decision from Sega did turn a lot of Unleashed fans off. As I mentioned, the Wii version of Sonic Unleashed performed the best. Because of that, Sega decided to sign a deal with Nintendo to have the next main Sonic game be a Nintendo exclusive, meaning it would only be available on the Wii and another version of the game would be on the DS. Of course, this meant the whole game wouldn't really be that much of a step up from the HD version of Sonic Unleashed, with it forcing itself to be developed on less powerful hardware. Another thing that kinda lowered this game's potential was that Takashi Iizuka mentioned that this Sonic game would be more for children, in the sense that Sonic Unleashed's darker, more serious tone would be abandoned. That's pretty underwhelming, but hey, a more kid-friendly tone wouldn't really hurt the franchise. Just look at Sonic Heroes. That game had a pretty inoffensive tone, and I still say the game's laid-back attitude was the perfect tone for the series. Yeah, it did have some cheese factor to it, mainly in the dialogue, but with the right writers, it could work really well. Well, the next Sonic game didn't get shown to the public until mid-2010, and that game just so happened to be titled Sonic the Hedgehog 4- Wait, no, fuck off! The game was called Sonic Colors, with most trailers showing that it was still using Unleashed's gameplay style, with it also being announced that regular Sonic's gameplay would be the only gameplay style available. No Woooooah. Alrighty then. The game later got released in November 2010 to huge praise from critics and fans. All of them were absolutely in love with this game, and considered it to be the best Sonic game in 18 years. Okay, who said that quote? IGN? Okay then. So, 2010 minus 18 is 1992. The same year Sonic 2 came out. So the last good Sonic game was Sonic 2? Really? Not counting any of the 3D titles, I know they shat on Unleashed and all, but even counting just the classic Sonic games, did they seriously toss Sonic CD and Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and motherfucking Knuckles under a bus? What, these two acclaimed games weren't worth mentioning? I swear, the praise the first two Sonic games keep receiving when Sonic 3K is the better game just infuriates me. Okay, so the basic gist of Sonic Colors' initial reception was that it was a great game and people loved it at the time. But I guess the keywords here were being at the time. So the question remains, does Sonic Colors still hold up as one of the better and best Sonic games ever made? No. Yeah, I'm cutting to the chase with this one. Sonic Colors is one of the most overrated Sonic games I've ever played. Right up there with Sonic 2. And Generations. Uh-oh. But let's just focus on this one game this video. So why exactly do I feel this way about Sonic Colors? Well, let's start with this game's plot. The premise of Sonic Colors is that Dr. Eggman built his own interstellar amusement park, with rides being built around 5 different planets. Sonic and Tails decide to sneak aboard Eggman's amusement park to see if this is one of his evil schemes. While trying to figure this out, they come across a race of aliens known as Wisps, who grant Sonic different abilities upon making contact with him. After a few encounters with Eggman and some seriously unfunny cutscenes, Sonic and Tails come across a machine built by Eggman that's sucking the life force out of the Wisps. Sonic, of course, takes care of the machine and defeats Dr. Eggman. Afterwards, Eggman's whole amusement park ends up getting sucked into a black hole along with Eggman himself, and Sonic almost succumbs to it, but he ends up getting rescued by the Wisps. The Wisps return Sonic back to Earth Mobius and bid farewell, ending the plot. The premise of Sonic Colors isn't really a bad one. Eggman seemingly building an amusement park that's actually trying to take control of alien planets isn't really that bad an idea. I mean, if Eggman couldn't really successfully conquer the Earth in Unleashed, I don't really blame him for trying to take over 5 alien planets, since this plan actually almost seemed like it was working. Really, I don't think this premise is dead on arrival. It had potential. I do like the idea of Sonic going to different planets and such. It could have led to all sorts of fun scenarios and cool worlds to go to. Sadly, the writers had zero interest in doing that. The writer for Unleashed, Kyoko Yoshimura, did not return to pen the script for Sonic Colors. Instead, Sega decided to hire 2 new writers, Ken Pontac and Warren Graff. These 2 have done writing work for video games like Mad World and several episodes of Happy Tree Friends. Really odd choice of writers for a Sonic game, but hey, maybe they have potential. They do not. Pontac and Graff are terrible writers. All of their jokes fall flat and there wasn't a single moment in this game where I found the writing funny or good. It barely felt like I was watching the cutscenes to a Sonic game, and I may know the reason why. 3 years after Sonic Colors came out, Ken Pontac did an interview where he stated he knew nothing about Sonic games. He said, quote, "I sort of knew what he was about, but I know nothing about his history or anything, so I kinda just went to Wikipedia and watched some cutscenes from various games on YouTube. If this is true, then I gotta say, it really shows. The tone for Sonic Colors is extremely kid-friendly, but as I've stated, if done right, it can be a lot of fun. Just look at Sonic Heroes. Cheesy, laid back, goofy as hell, but still a ton of fun. I still get a kick out of watching Sonic Heroes' cutscenes to this day. It would have been nice if Sonic Colors tried to capture a tone that represented or at least was similar to Sonic Heroes, but seeing how we've got two writers who know nothing about this franchise, the tone for Sonic Colors is nothing like Heroes or any other Sonic game for that matter. The writing is incredibly juvenile, and it doesn't help that Pontac's lack of knowledge for these characters seriously messes up their personalities. Sonic is supposed to be a cocky, fast-thinking, energetic hedgehog, but in Sonic Colors, he's so obnoxious. The personality that these writers gave him is that really annoying personality that most people who hate the series just assume Sonic has. He talks way too fucking much. He says really lame jokes, and he's so irritating.
でも助けてもらえるどころか、何か変なのが出てきてぶっ飛ばすことになるわけか。よー、俺を乗せてくれるのか？違うのか？さっきアナウンスで早めにって言ってたはずだけどな。よーテイルス、敵を倒す憲法を教えようか。政権2回であちょーってな。ここにあるものが全部お前のものでも俺には関係ない。
Wow, that's such a great line. It's really not. Pontac and Graf also decided to make Tails a generic super genius. But why? Where did this come from? Why is Tails even here? He serves no purpose. Every cutscene he's in is just wasting our time with lame jokes. Like in this game, Tails has his Miles Electronic from Unleashed, which he decides to transform into a translator so him and Sonic can understand what the Wisps are saying.
もちろんだよ。機械を改造するのは得意だからね。
Oh really? Only you can read it? Who are you supposed to be? The smart one? Oh yeah, and the translator has a few bugs which causes it to mistranslate some things. And I gotta say, the writing here is pretty damn funny.
怒ったって言ってるけど、誰が怒ってるのかな。うわ、違った。チェーンビームかアイスクリームを使うんだって言ってるけど。
ジェネレーターから出てたのはアイスクリームじゃなかったと思うぜ。
名前はサッカーだって。遠くの空へホームランをかっ飛ばしたら疲れてバットが折れたって言ってるけど、
サッカーっていうより野球の話をしてるんじゃないのか？
Oh man. Wait, none of this is funny. The writers basically flanderized Tails and Sonic's personalities. They're just bland hero number 6 and bland sidekick number 9. You can swap Tails and Sonic out with two completely generic video game characters and the writing would have the same effect. Speaking of generic, let's talk about Eggman in this game, and apparently how great his writing is. Eggman is just as bland as Sonic and Tails. He says lines in this game that just seem out of character for him to say, much like Tails and Sonic.
お前たちのエキスがあればもう誰も足を止められんぞ。前と同じようなことを言っとる気がするが、止められるものが俺なら止めてみるがいいわ。
What do you mean you say that every time? No you don't! You're not fucking Dr. Doofenshmirtz! This isn't a Saturday morning cartoon or some shit. It's definitely written like one. Well, what is it with Eggman being so incompetent in this game? He rose to power in Unleashed. He built fucking Eggman Land! But in Colors, he's so overly goofy, and it's really difficult for me to take him seriously. He's also got a lot of terribly unfunny jokes. Actually, let's discuss the jokes, if you could call them that. One really irritating writing strategy that Pontac and Graf seem to keep doing is that they keep a joke going for way too fucking long. And they also seem to keep making the characters act as if it's the funniest shit ever. It's never funny, and it gets old super quick. For example, whenever Sonic meets Eggman in this game, Eggman says that cliche line, "Nothing can stop me," as a setup for Sonic to say,
Sonic!
Okay, cheesy and predictable, but I'll let it slide because it's a pretty good moment for Sonic. What the fuck? What the hell? Stop!
Eggman の忍者が俺を止められんのか？
Excuse me, what the fuck are you idiots doing? Why are you further emphasizing this joke to the audience? Do you think we're fucking brain dead? Oh yeah, and then there's this golden line.
ウィスプたちがヒゲ卵って呼んでる悪いやつがいて。
ヒゲ卵だって？ そのまんまじゃないか。
Okay, that's not really that funny.
あれ、どこ行くのソニック。
決まってるだろ、ヒゲ卵を探すのさ。どうせ言うならヒゲゆで卵だな。
Holy shit, it wasn't that funny! What the hell is up with this? Every scene is like this. The characters just stand around, make lame jokes, and then they harp on them as if they're so goddamn funny. Heroes had better comedy.
Just what do you think you're doing here?
Who's this broad?
エッグマンの悪さの中でも特にひどいぜ。
Stop acting like this is the most insane thing Eggman has ever done! Did the writers even watch Sonic Unleashed? Yeah, that's another thing. They keep over-glorifying just how amazing Eggman's creations are in this game, when they're really not.
エッグマンね、調子に乗りやがって。いつの間にこんなの作ったんだ？気をつけないと。
Did Sonic just say epic?
今度は本当に強そうだよ。相手にしないでさっさと行こうよ。
What makes you think that, Tails? This giant machine is nothing in comparison to Gaia or even Chaos. Oh yeah, you probably noticed I've been playing this game with the Japanese voices again. That's because the English voice acting is still mostly underwhelming. Well, on a somewhat positive note, after the release of Sonic and the Black Knight, the contract that 4Kids made with Sega ended up expiring, which meant the 4Kids actors would no longer be voicing these characters. So yeah, confused Barney Sonic and gender-neutral Tails are not in this game, and aren't going to be in any of the later games. Thank God. Sounds harsh, but I never liked any of the 4Kids actors. To me, they all just came off as poor imitations of Ryan Drummond and the rest of the previous voice actors. However, Sega wasn't really in a rush to rehire any of the previous voice actors they got rid of after Heroes. So they just held auditions and hired new voice actors. I guess I should start off with the better half of the voice actors. First off, Tails is now being voiced by Kate Higgins, and she's really great. Hands down, the best Tails voice. I'm being serious. It kind of infuriates me that Tails is written so blandly in this game, but Kate still does a really good job with the shallow material she's given. Unlike Amy Pound, who couldn't really decide on what gender Tails should sound like, Kate Higgins gives Tails the voice he finally deserves. What voice is that? He sounds like a boy!
I wish I knew what you were saying, little guy. Or gal. Or whatever you are. I find that hard to believe. Well, I'm totally pleased. And a little nauseous. Oh, there you are. I thought I lost you for a second. Did you find anything interesting?
The next two okay voices are the guys that are voicing Orbot and the newly built Cubot. Orbot's new voice actor is Kirk Thornton, and Cubot is being voiced by Wally Wingert. Both of them are alright. They certainly do their job right, sounding like robots and such. Pretty inoffensive stuff. They're fine. I would be bothered by how Orbot doesn't sound exactly the same as he did in Unleashed, but seeing how he's sporting a slightly newer look, it wouldn't surprise me if when Eggman redesigned Orbot he would have updated his voice chip. It doesn't make zero sense that he sounds different. Again, Kirk Thornton does a fine job. I just wish Orbot wasn't given such cringeworthy dialogue.
The feet bone's connected to the talk bone. The talk bone's connected to the mouth bone. There, good as new.
I guess one positive about Cubot is that there's this plot point where his voice chip keeps messing up, and Eggman and Orbot are desperately trying to fix it. This allows Wally Wingert to get a chance to show off all the different voices and impressions he could do, which is cool and all, but again, I just wish the material they gave him wasn't so shite.
I feel like my own self! All I want to do is talk! Hey, remember when we were chasing those little alien guys? What's up with those things anyway? They sure were funny looking!
So, who's next? Oh no, it's Sonic and Eggman. So during the recasting of Eggman, Mike Pollock decided to leave 4Kids and re-audition for Dr. Eggman, and they accepted him. Yeah, so Mike Pollock is still Eggman. And I still don't like him. He's become such a fan favorite by this point that getting rid of him would just upset everyone. But for me, I'm so sick of hearing his voice come out of Eggman. I've said before that I think Mike is a fine actor, but he has the type of voice that whenever I hear his voice in another cartoon or game, I don't hear what character he's supposed to be voicing, I just hear Mike Pollock. And sadly, that applies to Eggman. I don't get Eggman from his voice. It's too generic and dull sounding by this point. It barely sounds like he's really manipulating his voice that much to do Eggman. Now Dean Bristow, that is Eggman. Lots of energy, ominous voice, great comedic timing. Pollock has none of the wonders that Bristow had. His voice doesn't fit for Eggman, and I don't think it ever will for me. Sorry, I know people love him, and I even loved his Eggman voice once upon a time ago, but it just never stuck with me. He's not Eggman, he's Mike Pollock, and Mike Pollock does have a nice voice, but it's not Eggman.
At Eggman's incredible interstellar amusement park, you can feel comfortable knowing your safety is our number one. Oh, shut up!
So, that was just about everyone, and I only seem to like just one actor. But hey, Tails got a good new voice, so maybe there's hope for Sonic, right? Right? First, a little bit of backstory. Around the time Sonic Colors was still in development, a certain someone was called back to re-audition for Sonic the Hedgehog. Just who was it? Jason? No. It just so happened to be your boy, Ryan Drummond. Yup, Ryan Drummond actually re-auditioned for the role of Sonic, and guess what? He actually got accepted! Finally! After 6 goddamn years, Drummond is back in the role of Sonic! I seriously cannot get enough of Ryan's Sonic voice. He made Sonic sound young, energetic, cocky. It was just the perfect voice. I just can't wait to hear him get back in the role and show those Jay Griff fans who's boss, right? Right? Unfortunately, this news was too good to be true. This is where the business side of things got in the way. You see, Ryan Drummond is a unionized actor, and those type of actors need to be paid a specific fee in order to do work outside their union. Sadly, Sega was not willing to pay Ryan Drummond. Instead of paying him, they actually offered him to sign a contract that asked him to leave his union, and they'd basically be paying him nothing. And since Ryan Drummond is a smart person and likes having a roof over his head, he had to decline their offer, and sadly, he did not return as Sonic. To this day, Sega still has not changed their minds over this, and once again, Drummond is not the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog anymore. So instead, Sega decided to hire someone else. Okay, it's not like Drummond is the only person capable of voicing Sonic. So maybe the next guy could be good. Perhaps he could take some inspiration from Drummond. Maybe that next Sonic voice could sound like that youthful, energetic hedgehog I'm asking for. But clearly Sega doesn't give a fuck about what's good for Sonic. So Sonic's new and so far current voice actor is a guy named Roger Craig Smith. And he's...
Hey, Tails. You missed the BBBE. Hey, did somebody here order a clobbering? I don't like what you're doing to my friends in there. It's messed up. So I'm gonna mess you up. No copyright law in the universe is going to stop me! Yeah, that's right. I'm stretching. You got a problem with that? Ugh, this might not end well.
Son of a bitch. I don't even know where to begin. Just what the hell type of voice is this? I mean, in terms of acting, he's better than Griffith, but the voice, it's so... wrong. Roger makes Sonic sound too old, and he sounds overly nasally as if he's pinching his nose while reading these lines. He sounds so damn forced. Though to be honest, with the shitty writing, Roger's terrible Sonic voice isn't that out of place. I mean, that's the best compliment I could give Roger. He does a really good job making Sonic sound as irritating as possible.
He said his name is Yacker. He's from a race of beings called Wisps.
Wisps?
No, Wisps, with a W.
Yeah, I'll just stick with aliens if that's okay with everybody.
You were supposed to be whispering that line, not blurting it out loud! Especially seeing how in Japanese Sonic whispers this line.
サッカーは
ごめん、野球でもなかったね。
要するにウィスプって呼べばいいんだよな。
It's kinda weird how this energetic 15-year-old hedgehog's English voice now sounds like a straining 30-year-old man. Thank Christ there's a Japanese voice option, especially since Junichi Kanemaru is still the voice of Sonic, and he's been here since Adventure 1.
Great! ご機嫌だね。そりゃ安心だ。逃げるのか。どう見ても悪党は追っかけてるロボットの方だな。しょうがないな、ったく。おいおい、テイルス。エッグマンがみんなのために楽しい遊園地なんか作るわけないだろ。
Just wish I could say the same for Ryan Drummond. To be honest, the writing is still really subpar and cringy, but would Ryan Drummond really make it sound good? Probably not, but he definitely would have made the cutscenes more pleasant for me to watch. I could at least say that after watching the cutscenes in Japanese. I mean, there's the obvious language barrier between us, but I can still tell that Junichi is trying his best with this cringeworthy dialogue. If Ryan Drummond was still here, it would have been such a shame to see him deliver such awful dialogue and unfunny jokes. Sonic Colors' tone is kind of like a reverse Shadow the Hedgehog. It fucks up everyone's personalities and flanderizes them to an almost unrecognizable point. I'm not asking for, oh yeah, this is happening, or anything like that, but I certainly would have liked something better than, haha, Baldy McNosehair, so funny. I mean it when I say it, Sonic Heroes had better writing. Yep, real superpower of teamwork and all. Is there anything I actually like about this story? Sure, but it's something that's too good for this game. In fact, it's so good that I personally think it was a complete accident on the writer's part. Just like in Unleashed, there's no last story segment. The story simply starts and then it ends. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I like that formula quite a lot, and I'm grateful the writers had the nerve to form the story that way. However, unlike in past games since debatably Sonic 3K, most of the previous games felt like they had to have this big, ultra ending where Sonic just goes super to stop whatever force is ahead of him. The game doesn't end like that. Instead, Sonic just beats Dr. Eggman. Yes, Dr. Eggman, no monster of the week this time, and that's the story. He doesn't go super, and he never mentions the Chaos Emeralds at all. That is the only aspect about this story that I liked. The Chaos Emeralds were not made a major part of the plot, or some lazy excuse to stop whatever antagonist they are facing. It makes the ending feel more original, and it doesn't come off as a tired idea. However, I still say this was done by complete accident. As I mentioned before, Ken Pontac and possibly Warren Graff knew almost nothing about this series when they got hired, and clearly didn't do a whole lot of research when writing this junk script. So perhaps due to their lack of knowledge of how the series works, maybe both of them just didn't know that all the games since Sonic 3K / Adventure 1 have been using this go super to stop the big bad guy ending. Thus the ending they wrote didn't end up using this idea again. I seriously believe this ending being slightly better in concept was done by complete accident. Pontac and Graff's lack of knowledge for this franchise unintentionally made the ending better than previous games. Good fucking job, you morons. So yeah, Sonic Colors' plot had potential, but the writers were more interested in writing lame puns and making Sonic an obnoxious asshole. Aside from one good voice actress, the English voice acting is still pretty weak, and Roger Craig Smith is probably the worst Sonic voice I've ever heard. Hands down. The most positive thing I have about Colors' story is that at least it was short. Again, it had potential, but the writers made this so fucking insufferable that I just kept cringing 105% of the time. Okay, let's talk about something else. The gameplay. Sonic Colors is using the same gameplay style from Sonic Unleashed. Thankfully, the gameplay is not horribly watered down like it was in Unleashed. Since Sonic Team were the ones who actually developed this game, the gameplay style feels just about the same as it did in the HD version of Sonic Unleashed, which is a huge positive. Just like in Unleashed, Sonic's got his homing attack, his stomp, and his boost ability. However, instead of collecting rings to refill your boost gauge, you instead have to fill it up by smashing these Wisp containers. Yes, the Wisps are the ones who give Sonic his boost ability. You don't come across a container that often, so the boost ability is used pretty sparingly in this game. Okay, so we're not going to be boosting that often, so does that mean the gameplay is going to mostly be Sonic Adventure-esque instead of Unleashed? Wow, we're diving right into the negatives real early with this one. Here's the issue I have with Sonic's gameplay style. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be a step up from Unleashed. Something about Sonic just feels so underpowered. I don't know how to describe it. In fact, Sonic actually doesn't have the light dash in this game. Yeah, it's just gone. Why'd they take that move away? The only new ability we really get is a double jump, but it controls so awkwardly. I could get used to how its physics work, but it becomes really difficult and sometimes frustrating to use when you're trying to land jumps. It's easier to pull off in 2D, but in 3D, you know, the really rare moments you're in them, it's so unfeasible. It just comes off as an annoying special move. I wish tapping the jump button twice would just make me dash forward, you know, like in the previous games. Now you can still dash forward, but you gotta press jump and then the boost button. Yeah, just like in Unleashed when the homing attack was its own button. However, in Colors, it switches the homing attack back to pressing jump twice. But if there aren't any enemies around, then pressing jump twice will just do the double jump. You can only air dash by pressing jump and then the boost button. Of course, the air boost is back, but it only activates whenever your boost gauge is filled. Still, the air boost can throw me off at points whenever I'm trying to do a simple air dash at certain spots and levels. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the developers made the QuickTime events into button mashing. That's fine. I'm pretty sure this game doesn't have any tacky motion controls, but this game's control scheme was clearly designed for a GameCube controller. It feels the most correct to play this game using that, because whoever the hell mapped the classic controller's buttons deserves a death penalty. For whatever reason, they just left the A, B, and X buttons for the classic controller to be the exact same as the GameCube controller, and that's the problem. The classic controller and the GameCube controller's buttons are rearranged. The classic controller is basically an Xbox or PS3 controller, especially seeing how its buttons are similarly laid out. Let's compare the classic controller's buttons as if it were the Xbox controller. If you're using the classic controller, you jump with A, you boost with B, and you stomp with X. So if we were using the same placements as the Xbox controller, that means the game made B jump, A boost, and Y stomp. What fucking drugs were they on? Why were they so goddamn lazy when it came to mapping the classic controller? Lay them out like the Xbox controller would, not matching them up with the GameCube controller. It is adjustable to use, but this can make performing simple tasks like stomping or even jumping become really annoying. Back to the actual movesets, where's the fucking spin dash? You're making me use the boost sparingly in this game, so where's my goddamn spin dash? You have no idea how many times I could have used the spin dash to save myself, or maybe reach a new route in the level that the air dash just couldn't help me achieve. Actually, let's segue right into that, the level design, which has to be some of the most non-Sonic shit I've ever seen. When it comes to the environments, they look fine, I guess? Like, for the Wii, it looks good, but then again, it's the Wii. Obviously, the Hedgehog engine could not be used to make the game's worlds look more beautiful, even though the developers certainly did try to make these unique worlds look, well, unique. But I don't know, I guess after 7 years, these graphics just don't hold up the best. They're okay, but that's all they are. Okay. It is kind of a shame that these level layouts aren't very inspired either. I love the concept of going to different alien planets, but I feel this game could have fleshed it out a bit better. You're probably thinking, well, this isn't the PS3, Cooper, it's the Wii. Obviously, they couldn't make the level layouts that fleshed out. Sure, but just look at Sonic Adventure. Those levels had open environments, differing pathways, and just overall good design. And that game was on the Dreamcast. Colors came out 12 years later, so what's this game's excuse? It would have been neat to see them give the levels in colors this twist, but instead we get very blocky 2D sections and some insanely linear 3D sections. Like they're way more linear than the ones that were in Unleashed. Actually, let's talk about that for a bit. The 3D sections in Sonic Colors are insanely rare to come across, but whenever you do get to one, they really highlight just how uninspired the level design is. They're always closed off by invisible walls or fence barriers. Its limiting and restraining level design is really giving me SA2 flashbacks. There's almost zero exploration in Sonic Colors. It's that fucking barren. And I'm just talking about the 3D sections. The 2D sections, like, holy Gandhi, they're dull. Almost every level in this game is mostly in 2.5D, and there's barely anything Sonic about them, you know, apart from Sonic being in them. They're blocky, flat, and really boring. There's no flair to these levels. They're just running and jumping. It's too simplistic for me to care. There are loop structures, but they're all pretty automated, and they often have a dash pad in front of them to immediately send you through it if you can't use your boost. Well, gee, if only Sonic had the ability to rev up in a ball and spin through the loops, you know, so that there wouldn't need to be a fucking dash pad in front of the loop! A lot of people say the level design in this game went back to basics, but what the fuck does that even mean? Like, Sonic 1 basics? Well, I wouldn't say that because none of the levels and colors are physics-based. What does back to basics even mean? Like, NES basics? Because it most certainly does feel as blocky as an NES game. Do people just assume that making the level design generic as possible, it'll just feel like Sonic 1? Sonic 1 wasn't that generic. It was a fun, decently paced, and physics-based platformer. It wasn't your run-of-the-mills Mario ripoff, it was its own thing, and Sonic Colors doesn't really do a good job replicating it. I feel almost insulted when people say Sonic Colors went back to basics, because I seriously don't think the people who say that know what they're talking about. Back to basics, my ass. So, what else is there to talk about after dealing with the blandest of all level layouts? I guess the actual levels. You end up going to 7 different locations, with the first 6 levels having 6 acts each. You get to the levels by using a simple level map, no hub areas. I'm kinda saddened by this, but hey, this isn't too bad. I do think doing it stage to stage is the best way to handle a Sonic game. I just wish the levels could stand on their own because Tropical Resort is probably the weakest looking level. The most I can remember about this level is how brown the ground can look, and how flashy the lights in the lobby are. I sound like an idiot. Sweet Mountain. Okay, this place is pretty memorable seeing how you're in a world made of junk food. It's certainly a lot more colorful than Tropical Resort, I'll say that. The level design is still pretty simplistic and dull. That's a shame. Starlight Carnival. Okay, this level tries. It really tries. And to be honest, it's probably one of the best looking levels in the game. It's just suffering from this game's bland way of handling level designs. These blocky 2D sections plague every level, and it gets so old after a while. Starlight Carnival is flashy and very colorful, and it probably has my favorite 3D set piece in this entire game, mainly because it's the only interesting 3D set piece. You're climbing up a metal tower in Act 5 and homing into enemies to reach the top. It's the most memorable aspect about this level. I don't like colors that much, but I will give credit where credit is due. Just wish the rest of the levels had segments like these. Planet Wisp. This level right here. It pisses me off. It seriously does. In the whole grand scheme of things, this is the Wisps' home planet. The Wisps are a major aspect about the story. Sonic and Tails are trying to save them. You're supposed to make this level feel really special and unique. Instead, it's more blocky 2D sections and insanely scarce and linear 3D sections. Come on! Give us an open world! Look at the forest area for this level, especially the one at the beginning of Act 1. It looks so beautiful! It would have been so awesome to explore this level's environments and such. But nope, we got this blocky mess instead. Aquarium Park. Yet again, this level kinda irks me in the same way Planet Wisp did. Once again, this level gives us blocky 2D platforming and linear 3D sections, which sucks because this is probably the most unique looking level in the game. The water effects look really good, and the environments hold up really well. If Colors was ever given an HD/PC port, I'm sure this level would really benefit from it. Again, I just wish the level layouts weren't so dull. I know, I can't stop saying that. Though one thing that this level introduces is that Sonic can swim. Somewhat. With the help of his double jump, Sonic can go up in the water if you keep tapping the jump button. So, that's pretty neat. Asteroid Coaster. The last level with 6 acts, and this is getting predictable, isn't it? Blocky 2D platforming and linear 3D sections. Snore. The level looks really barren. I don't even care anymore. Terminal Velocity. The last level-ish. I say ish because it's not really a level. You're just running. Yeah, just running and dodging enemies and obstacles. The second act is just the final boss, and the third act doesn't really count as an actual level, so... bleh. Okay, you may have noticed them just from watching my gameplay footage, but Sonic Colors has a brand new gimmick for Sonic's gameplay, the Wisps. During your first playthrough, you'll notice these missing multicolored Wisp containers. That's because going through later levels will make you unlock certain Wisps. Aside from the boost containers, there are 8 different Wisps you can unlock in Sonic Colors. Drill, Laser, Cube, Hover, Spikes, Frenzy, and Rocket. Drill is a triangular wisp that allows Sonic to drill into the ground for 2D sections, so that it could help him find stuff and other shit. Laser kinda speaks for itself. You could use it to zoom right into enemies, rare shortcuts, and these crystal symbols that could take Sonic to different blocky routes. Cube is a wisp that turns specific items into cubes, while turning other cubes into blue coins. This wisp can also be used to smash certain blocks out of Sonic's way. They literally made a wisp that could create more block platforms. Amazing. Hover is a wisp that can hover, obviously. You could keep hovering by holding the jump button, and if you press the boost button, he could do a little dash, which can also allow him to... dash on a trail of rings? What the fuck? That's the Lightspeed dash! Why is this just a wisp power-up? Okay, the next wisp is the Spike Wisp, which can turn Sonic into a pink ball that could stick to walls and ceilings to reach other sections of the level. The wisp can also do the homing attack, and whenever you press the boost button, he can... That's the Spin Dash! Why is the fucking Spin Dash limited to being a sticky Wisp power-up? The next Wisp is the Frenzy Wisp, which can turn Sonic into a purple monster head that can devour enemies in specific block platforms. Last, there's the Rocket Wisp, which speaks for itself. It's a rocket wisp. It shoots you up into the air and Sonic can skydive back to the level. So yeah, those were all the Wisps. They're there to add replay value, and admittably they get the job done. They can help you find newer pathways, a few one-ups, and these red rings that I'll get to later. Do they add to the gameplay? Obviously, yes. Are they a good addition? Well, let me ask you this. If you're one of those people who complained about how the Wolfhawk's gameplay had nothing to do with Sonic the Hedgehog, then... answer this question. What the fuck do the Wisps have to do with a Sonic game? They don't add that much. They're worthless. A lot of people love Sonic for his speed. Do the Wisps make Sonic go faster? Not really. They usually slow him down and often make him go through this game's blocky platforming way more often. The Wisps are a dumb gimmick. They serve no purpose. I don't like any of the Wisps at all. I don't like them as characters and I don't care for them as power-ups. Fuck Yacker. That's right, I don't give a shit about Yacker. He sucks. Actually, there's this one cutscene where the writers must have realized this game's plot needed some tension, so they have Tails throw this concerning line just out of nowhere. Seriously, no context needed. Tails just blurts out,
Sonic, I haven't seen Yacker for a while.
I hope Yacker's fucking dead. Okay, so why don't I like the Wisps? Apart from the fact that their name is really difficult to say and their designs are kinda but apart from those two things, I just think they ruined this game in terms of level design. For starters, almost all the Wisps can only be used in 2D. They're rarely ever used in 3D, if at all. And even if you hold on to a Wisp and enter a 3D section, trying to use them will just cause them to fly away like a bunch of bitches. Come on, you work just fine in 2D. Is the third dimension too difficult for you to handle? The Wisps seem to run on the same logic most people who think Sonic can't work in 3D appear to run on. Apart from that, the game seems to be designed around the Wisps' abilities instead of, you know, Sonic's. Aside from a few moments in levels, you don't have to use the Wisps, but that just means the levels are going to be way more uninteresting to traverse through. Tons of people say the Wisps saved this game. Well, I'm saying they butchered this game. Like I said before, the levels are all designed around using the Wisps, and it just makes it so goddamn boring. I've never been so bored playing a Sonic game in my life. Since the levels aren't designed around Sonic's abilities, they're nowhere near as thrilling as they were in previous games, especially Unleashed. I don't care for the Wisps because they're practically the main reason why this game's level design is so underwhelming to play through. They're some of the most over-glorified gimmicks to ever be put in a Sonic game. They're side gimmicks, but they're side gimmicks that are completely handicapping this game. Okay, the boss battles. Throughout the game, not counting the final boss, you end up fighting 6 different bosses for each level. No, you end up fighting 3 different bosses that the game just repeats for the levels, because the game designers sure couldn't be bothered to make more than 3 bosses. Starting with the bosses in Tropical Resort and Planet Wisp, they're the same Ferris wheel Batnik that only involves you homing into its eye a good 3 times. It's the easiest boss fight I've ever encountered in a video game ever. It almost gives Chaos Zero a run for its money. The boss fights in Sweet Mountain and Aquarium Park are these pirate ships that involves you to flip a switch and home into the pirate ship Captain Batnik. It's a bit more difficult than the Tropical Resort / Planet Wisp boss, but it's not super hard or memorable to be honest. Though the Aquarium Park boss is underwater and even lets you use the drill wisp so that you could drill right into the captain as he swims away. It is a decent way of differentiating this boss from the last zone that used it, even though the controls can still be bothersome. Now, the bosses in Starlight Carnival and Asteroid Coaster are kick fucking ass. These 2 levels are my favorite boss fight. Why? Well, it involves Sonic chasing down a robotic airship and homing into the bastard to damage it up a bit. It feels really gratifying just smashing the hell out of the airship. Plus, even the laser and rocket whips are used pretty well in this boss fight. It's fast-paced and feels like a boss that belongs in a Sonic game. And thankfully, this transitions right into the final boss as well. The Nega Wisp armor, which much like the previous games, has 2 phases. Kind of. This involves Eggman riding in a giant machine that's using the Wisp abilities. Throughout the boss fight, he's sending different attacks at Sonic, who's busy running, dashing, and jumping over everything. The concept of this boss is pretty similar to the Starlight Carnival boss, seeing how Sonic is constantly running through the whole ordeal. The boss fight itself is kinda easy. I guess a lot of people really hated how difficult Dark Gaia was, so they made this final boss really easy just to please those fans. Though to be honest, this boss fight could have been slightly better if it had an actual second phase. The first phase takes a good 3 hits. After that, the music changes and we enter the second phase, and this is when it gets a little more difficult. You assume that the boss is gonna last another 3 hits, but instead you only hit Eggman once, then you charge up the Wisps, and it's over. Really? Just 1 hit? This is barely a second phase. What, were they afraid that if they made the second, more harder phase last longer that it would have been too difficult for children to beat? Fuck children! I said this already, but this is such an underwhelmingly easy final boss. What also sucks is that we don't even get to hear the second phase's music for that long. Okay, let's segue right into that. Sonic Colors' soundtrack is okay. It's very well composed and has a lot of great level themes, but I'd have to really think about it if I'd say this is in my top 10. The soundtrack is once again led by Tomoyo Otani, and the direction is once again replicating Adventure by making the music blend in with its surroundings. Though that could understandably limit how great the soundtrack could be with this game's blender and simplistic level themes. The whole soundtrack isn't completely affected by this, and I'd only say Starlight Carnival had the weakest level themes, but everything else is pretty solid. Tropical Resort has a catchy opening and a nice melody to it. Sweet Mountain has some very energetic and intense feeling in its level themes. Really wish the level layouts had the same feeling. Starlight Carnival, as I mentioned before, has the weakest music tracks. It's not bad, but it's also not as catchy or atmospheric to me. Planet Wisps and even Aquarium Park are just, their pianos, the Planet Wisp bass line, and just the orchestral feeling both levels have going towards them just makes some of the best music tracks in this game. Or hell, maybe even the whole series. Then there's Asteroid Coaster. This level isn't that great, neither are the rest of the levels, but the music kicks ass. Everything else is orchestral sounding and such, but Asteroid Coaster just hits us with the electric guitar, right from the level map. It's awesome. It's one of the best level themes in this game because holy shit. One thing I like about the soundtrack is that there are 3 different renditions of the level themes. Yeah, there are 6 acts but only 3 level themes. I'll let that slide. It helps give the soundtrack way more variety, and with the right instrumentation, the level music can sound really fucking good. Some of my favorite music tracks are the boss themes. Not so much the first boss theme, it's pretty mess sounding, but the second boss theme has a slow build up, but once it starts kicking, it becomes really catchy and rockin'. And of course, the third boss theme is one of my favorites. It's intense, fast-paced, and insanely rockin' like the last theme. You're probably wondering if Sonic Team got an actual orchestra for this game's soundtrack, much like they did for Unleashed, and they did! Instead of the Tokyo Philharmonic, we got the Amsterdam Session Orchestra. And they did a pretty damn good job. Like in Unleashed, the live orchestra composes the game's orchestral theme, a new rendition of the results screen. They also composed the options and save menus. Another track they did was the drowning music. Yes, the dreaded drowning music. While it's nice to hear a live orchestra compose it, I don't think it sounds that threatening. It's well instrumentated, but it could sound a little more scary. Are there any weak tracks on this soundtrack? Oh yeah, no doubt. The music and cutscenes can come off sounding a little too whimsical and childish. It's pretty forgettable and underwhelming stuff, especially seeing how previous games made cutscene music sound way better. And of course, there's the 2 tracks that completely bring down this game's soundtrack. The 2 vocal themes, Reach for the Stars and Speak With Your Heart, are auto-tuned garbage. Some of the worst vocal themes I've ever heard in a Sonic game. In fact, they barely sound like they're made for a Sonic game. I know people love to insult Crush 40 by calling them butt rock and all, but at least the butt rock didn't sound this bad.
The sky will start so bright, the colors feel so right. Just take my hand, we're gonna reach for the stars tonight. Speak with your heart, speak with your heart. If you could tell me how to bend a hand, I would try to understand.
God, these songs suck. Both of them were done by the band Cash Cash, whose lead singer can't sing for shit. These vocal themes are annoying, incredibly bad, and I don't want to hear them ever again. I'm sorry I had to play a sample for you guys to listen to. I mean, you're probably already upset that I don't like Sonic Colors that much, but hey, at least we could hate on Cash Cash together, right? You know what's kind of underwhelming? Well, a tiny bit underwhelming. The final boss for this game continues that tradition that Sonic 06 started, where the music for the second phase of the final boss is an orchestrated remix of the game's vocal theme. To be perfectly honest, while I absolutely hate Reach for the Stars so goddamn much, the final boss remix is fantastic. For a while I thought the Endless Possibility remix was the best, but now I'm starting to think the Sonic Colors final boss is the best final boss remix we ever got out of this trend. It's explosive, emotional, and so goddamn powerful. Seriously, the only flaw in this final boss theme is that it's a remix of Reach for the Stars, but on its own, it sounds incredible. It completely diminishes this game's vocal theme, and it's so spectacular. What's not so spectacular is how this game plays the final boss theme. As I mentioned before, it's for the second phase, but the second phase only lasts like 30 seconds. So before the song can get a chance to get good, the boss is already over. So sad to see such an amazing boss theme go so underused just to benefit the whole "this game is for children" mentality. Difficulty doesn't make the game not for children. Kids love difficult games. I know it because I love difficult games. I hated the last few levels in Donkey Kong Country when I was little, but that game's still great. Sonic Colors' watered down level design really brings down the soundtrack in a way. Tomoya and his sound team did a wonderful job again, but the game designers didn't put as much effort into the game as the composers did to the soundtrack. Such a shame. Also, fuck Cash Cash. Okay, I'm just about done talking about this fucking game. What else haven't I mentioned? Oh yeah, the red rings. What are the red rings? Well, they're special rings you could collect in the levels. There are 5 of them in each act. In total, there are 180 red rings to collect. Hey, that's the same amount of emblems in SA2. Get it? Get it? What's the point of collecting red rings? Well, after you collect a good amount, you'll see all of them go inside this robot Sonic head on the map. This head is the home of Gameland, which contains an arcade-esque minigame called the Sonic Simulator, which has 7 different levels with 3 acts each. These are even more blocky levels, but I guess it's excusable here since this is a neat distraction in the form of a minigame that you don't really need to play. As I said, the levels are about as linear and blocky as the rest of the regular levels. Actually, there are some points in the levels where it just rips level layouts that are from Sonic 1 and 2. Yeah, the exact level segments. We don't get anything from Sonic CD or Sonic 3K, which is both weird and sad. And to be perfectly honest, this game reusing level layouts from the Genesis games kind of unintentionally reminds me of how much better those games' level designs were in comparison to Colors. Guess you could say nostalgia kinda bit them back in the ass. Oops. Anyways, the Gameland is a nice distraction, but it's nothing special. I do like the 8-bit remixes of the level music. Like, level 1 has an 8-bit remix of Tropical Resort, level 4 has a remix of Planet Wisps, and so on. I think my favorite remix has to be Aquarium Park's 8-bit version. It surprisingly sounds just as beautiful as the original track. One kind of missed opportunity is that we only get remixes of the level's first act, not all 3. It would have been nice to hear different arrangements of these 8-bit remixes, especially seeing how each Gameland level has 3 acts. Oh well. Okay, so after getting all 180 red rings, you'll be able to play through all 21 levels in Gameland. What do you get after completing them? Not much. I mean, you get these 8-bit gems above each level. You know, they kind of remind me of the Chaos Emeralds. Okay, let's get out of Gameland and... Whoa, the option satellite's going yellow. Did I unlock something? Huh? Supersonic? That's an odd option. Okay, I'm gonna head back to the levels for extra footage, and oh look, Sonic's Supersonic on the map now. That's a pretty nice detail, I guess. What the heck? Wait, what the hell? Why aren't the Wisps working? I can't use the Wisps anymore? Why is this happening? Just what the hell is going on? Oh, press Z. Whoa! Holy shit! What? Is that Supersonic? Supersonic playable in regular levels in a modern Sonic game? What? Oh my god, I'm Supersonic! Yes! I'm finally having fun with this game! Holy shit! God mode, bitches! Woo! Yes! This is so... Oh, come on. I gotta patiently wait and platform through this blocky shit? Why is this game's level design so bad? Hell yeah, I'm Supersonic! Yes! Holy hell, what a thrill ride. Supersonic's back! And it's the first time he's been made playable in regular levels after, like, 16 years since Sonic 3K. Or hell, 13 years if you want to count Sonic R. Well, I guess that's one noteworthy thing Sonic Colors did.
Actually, Cooper, Supersonic being playable in regular levels again technically happened in Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 first, because that game came out 1 month before Sonic Colors did.
Will you and everyone else shut the fuck up about Sonic 4? Sonic Mania completely makes it worthless now! Stop! Just stop! Anyways, yeah, it's great to be Supersonic again. Heck, this is the first time Supersonic has been playable in 3D levels. I mean, he controls like shit, but still, this is freaking awesome. He's also got a permanently filled boost gauge, so he can boost forever too. Freaking sweet. The only flaw with Supersonic in this game is that he can't instantly power down, and you'll have to wait for his ring counter to reach 0 again just to change back into regular Sonic. So it's the same issue Supersonic had in Sonic 2. Great. Oh yeah, he also makes Sonic unable to use the Wisp when Supersonic mode is turned on, But I don't care about the stupid damn Wisps, fuck 'em. Oh, and all the levels are slightly altered to have springs placed in specific spots for Sonic so we could reach higher areas since the Wisps are all inoperable. To be honest, on the very, very rare occasions I go back to play Sonic Colors, I'm usually keeping the Supersonic mode activated because nothing else in this game intrigues me. The levels are insanely dull and haven't aged well at all. Not even Supersonic can redeem them. This could have been a nice 3D explorative Sonic game using all these decent locations and landscapes, but instead we got this. A mostly 2D blocky adventure with the extremely rare and insanely linear 3D moments. Sonic Colors is probably one of the most basic and easiest Sonic games I've ever played. This game doesn't hold up very well as a Sonic game, and at a point the game's really boring on its own, so just where the hell did all this glowing praise come from? Seriously, I don't see it. How is this one of the best Sonic games? I would barely put this above Heroes. Heroes held up better than this game in almost every aspect. I'm sorry, but Sonic Colors isn't doing it for me. The levels and the whole feel are just generic as shit, and it feels like a step in the wrong direction for me. The game is reaching 7 years old, and I just don't think it holds up that great. If Sonic Unleashed managed to age well, then Sonic Colors sure didn't. It's one of the most generic and completely overrated Sonic games I've ever played.
Wow, they put Sonic in the most generic 2D platformer with extremely blocky platforming and an uninspired level design. It's not that good. But hey, at least that gay werewolf isn't in it.
9.5 out of 10. Best Sonic game in 28 years. Pretty amazing to see how disconnected professional reviewers and actual gamers can be. Look, Sonic Colors is just okay. It's not as bad as I probably made it out to be. It's just that I don't care for it. It's dull, it's generic, it's almost everything I don't want a Sonic game to be. Just another run-of-the-mill mascot platformer game. Sonic can be so much greater than this, and even proved this in his last game. Colors just feels like a step down from Unleashed. It's not trying to level it up in any way. This game is not going to leave a lasting impression on me like Sonic Unleashed did, and I'm so ashamed of that. If you like Sonic Colors, then alright, good for you. I don't, and I'm most certain that I'm never going to. The writing is garbage, the levels are bland, but the soundtrack is pretty good, and getting to play as Supersonic in regular levels again is rather nice, but I don't see myself coming back to Sonic Colors for a long, long time, or hell, probably ever again, and I think that is the game's biggest flaw. 6 out of 10. Well, the comments for this video are going to be a shitstorm. If people watch this, that is. Again, if you're going to tell me something like Sonic Colors is your most favoriteest Sonic game ever, then that's totally fine. And it's perfectly okay for people like me to disagree with you. Especially since people like me prefer to play, you know, good games. All jokes aside, that was Sonic Colors and I didn't like it that much. Oh well. So the next game, and I guess big event, is that one Sonic game that right now I have very weird feelings about, mainly in terms of gameplay. It's the common fan favorite, Sonic Generations, and I guess I look forward to reviewing this game. I mean, I feel more enthused about reviewing this game than I did that game. So come back next time on Cooper's Perspective to dislike my review of Sonic Generations and leave in the comments that I'm a nitpicking killjoy asshole, when in reality, I'm not really asking for that much from Sonic. Thanks for watching, and fuck Cash Cash.